Kelsey wants to rent the movie The Blind Side. At a movie rental machine, movies rent for $2.50 each, except for Fridays when they rent for $1.15. Approximately what percent of the regular cost will Kelsey save if she rents The Blind Side on a Friday? Is the answer A, 90%, B, 54%, C, 17%, or D, none of the above? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and if you get stuck, don't worry because we're just going to go over the answer. Okay, so first, what I recommend doing is trying to figure out the amount of money she will save if she rents on a Friday. So the way that we would do this is we would say, well, the other 6 days of the week, right, she's going to pay $2.50 if she rents the movie, but on a Friday, she's only going to pay $1.15. So we can do 2.5 minus 1.15, and if we do this, we'll see that she will save $1.35 by renting on a Friday. So now that we know the amount of money she'll save by renting on a Friday, we need to figure out what percent of the regular cost she'll save if she rents on a Friday. So to do this, we can bring out the percent formula, which is part over whole equals percent over 100. The part is always going to be the smaller number. So we're going to take this 1.35 and we're going to plug it into the formula for the part. And the whole is the 2.5. So I'm going to take 2.5 and plug it in here for the whole. So when I do this, here's what I'll have. I'll have 1.35 over 2.5 equals percent over 100. And so when we do 1.35 divided by 2.5 in our calculators, we get 0.54. So 0.54, the last thing we have to do is multiply that by 100. And if we do that, we're going to get 54%. Okay, so again, we did 1.35 divided by 2.5. That gave us 0.54. Then we did 0.54 times 100, and we got the final answer, which is B, 54%. Consider the formula 20x equals 6y parentheses z minus 2 parentheses. If x equals negative 2 and z equals 3, what is the value of y? Is the answer A, negative 9 over 20, B, 4, C, negative 20 over 3, or is the answer D, 7? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so what I would recommend here is just taking this negative 2 and replacing the x in the formula with negative 2. And we can do this because we know that x equals negative 2. And since we know that z equals 3, I'm going to take this 3 and just replace z in the formula with 3. So let me rewrite this and I'll show you what it'll look like. So after I rewrite, I'm going to have 20 times negative 2 equals 6y parentheses 3 minus 2 parentheses. So the next step then would be to do this 3 minus 2, which is just 1, and to do 20 times negative 2, which is just negative 40. So once I rewrite this, I'll have negative 40 equals 6y. So the name of the game here is to figure out what y equals. So since I have 6 times y, I have to do the opposite of times, which is to divide. So if I divide by 6 on one side, I also have to do that on the other side. So we have negative 40 over 6 equals y. So if you got to this step, really good job. But we have to take it one step further here because we have a fraction here that's not yet in simplest form. So we're going to have to simplify, reduce, lower, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to have to do to get the final answer here. So since these are both even numbers, I know that I can divide them both by 2. So if I do negative 40 divided by 2, I get negative 20. And if I do 6 divided by 2, I get 3. So the final answer is negative 20 over 3. And you can also always simplify fractions easily in your calculator. I'll try to remember to put a link. I have a really short video. In fact, it is a short where I show you how to do it in your calculator. Evan works as a sales representative at Pretend Wireless. Cell phone sales representatives at Pretend Wireless earn a $25 commission per cell phone for the first 6 cell phones they sell each month. For every additional cell phone sold during that month, the commission per cell phone is 2.5 times the rate for the first 6. How much commission will Evan earn if he sells 11 phones in a month? Please write your answer in the box below. So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so for this question here, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at the total commission that he's going to make for the first 6 cell phones, right? So for the first 6 cell phones, he's going to earn $25 each. So we can do 6 times 25. And if we do this in our calculator, or you could work it out by hand if you want, we will get 150. So this tells us, again, that for those first 6 cell phones he sells, the total in commission that he's going to make is $150. So now let's look at the part here where it says that for every additional cell phone sold in that month, the commission is 2.5 times the rate of the first 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2.5 times 25. All right, because the rate for the first 6, it's $25 per one phone. So let's do 2.5 times 25. And when we do that, we get $62.5 per one phone. So this first step here, when I did this 6 times 25 and I found that that equaled 150, I'm just going to rewrite 150 up here so we have more room for the final step later. If he sells 11 phones total, and we know that 11 minus 6 for the first 6 sold, we know that 11 minus 6 will give us 5. So there's going to be 5 remaining phones, and we have to figure out the total commission on the 5 other phones that he sold. So the way that we do that, and I'm kind of running out of room here, but I'm going to do 62.5 times 5. All right, 62.5 times 5 equals 312.5. So we have that 312.5, and we just come back here and we add that to 150. And we add these together and we get the answer as 462.5. So the final answer is 462.5. Together, Mike and James earn $2,700 a month. If James earns $70 more per month than Mike, how much does Mike earn per month? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's talk about this question here. So basically, we can write 2 equations here that will help us through this question. So here we know that Mike and James earn $2,700 a month. So we can say that Mike's monthly earnings plus James' monthly earnings equal 2,700. So this is the first equation we can write. And the second equation comes from the fact that James earns 70 more per month than Mike. So we can say that James' earnings equal Mike's plus 70. Okay, so now what we can do is we can come up here to our first equation, and since we know that J equals M plus 70, I can come up to the J in my first equation, and I can replace it with M plus 70. So let me show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this first equation here, but I'm going to replace J with M plus 70. So I'm going to write M plus 70. And this still all equals 2,700. So let me simplify this as much as I can. M plus M is 2M. So I would have 2M plus 70 equals 2,700. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 70 from both sides. So what I'm doing here is subtracting 70, so the 70s cancel out here because plus 70 minus 70 cancel out. And I have to come over here and subtract 70 as well. So when I do that, 2,700 minus 70, I get 2M equals 2,630. So I wrote this up here because I don't have any more room down here. So now to get M, I want to divide by 2 on both sides. And you might be wondering, why do I do that? Well, since I have 2M and I just want to get M by itself, I have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other as well. So when all is said and done, I have to do 2,630 divided by 2, and that is 1315. So A is the correct answer here. Line T passes through the points 10, -6, and 16, 12 on the coordinate grid. What is the slope of line T? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to, as always, to pause the video, try to figure this out. And just to save you some time, since we're only practicing, I put the formula for slope right here. This little m symbol, this means slope, and its slope equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. And on the real test, you'll have to go to the formula sheet that they'll give you and find this on the formula sheet. But again, I just gave it to you to save time since we're practicing. So let me give you a chance now to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's first take a look at the first pair here, which is 10 and -6. So whenever we have a pair like this, the first number is always going to be an x, and the second number is always going to be a y. So this 10 right here, I'm going to go ahead and label this x1. And the second number in the pair is always a y, so I'm going to label this -6 y1. Now I'm going to come to my second pair of numbers, this 16 and 12. And the first number here, I'm going to call this x2, because the first number is always an x. And for this 12 here, I'm going to call this y2, because the second number is always going to be a y. So now that I've got these labels put on here, all I have to do is come up here to the formula, and I just simply plug the values in. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I labeled my 12 as y2. So I come up into the formula where it says y2, and I'm going to replace that with a 12. I'm going to do the same with this y1 here. So -6 is my y1, so I'm going to plug -6 in for y1. And same with the x2, which is 16. I'm going to put that into the formula in place of the x2. And I'm going to come to my 10, which I labeled as x1, and I'm going to plug that in. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So when I rewrite these, I'm going to have slope equals y2 minus y1. So it's going to be 12 minus -6. Now, when I do minus a negative, it's the same as plus. So instead of writing minus -6, I can just put 12 plus 6. And down here, I'm going to have x2 minus x1. So I'm going to have 16 minus 10. And we can simplify this here. So this would become 12 plus 6 is 18. And 16 minus 10 is 6. So I have 18 divided by 6, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. So B is the correct answer here. This video's champion shoutout goes to a test taker who says just passed my GED math test and was able to get a 183, which is a very, very high score. And the test taker says, I hope anyone who has the ambition to move forward in life will not get discouraged and keep going. You can do it. So I want to wish this person a big congratulations, and anyone out there watching it, keep going. Someday you'll be able to pass too. If a company has 250 workers and 20 workers earn minimum wage, what percent of the workers at the company earn minimum wage? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out. And as always, if you get stuck, don't worry about it, because we're just going to go over the answer. Okay, so for percent questions, the formula that I recommend is part over whole equals percent over 100. And some people can just look at a percent question like this and just know what you have to do, just know what numbers to plug in the calculator without even using the formula. And if you can do that, that's great. But for most people, what I recommend is just memorizing this formula here, part over whole equals percent over 100. And as long as you plug the numbers into the formula correctly, this formula here should get you the correct answer for the majority of percent questions on your test. Now, if they give you like a really complicated curveball percent example, then it might be a little bit more complicated than just plugging the numbers in. But for basic percent questions, this is going to get you the right answer. So let me show you how I would use this formula in this case here. So sometimes people get confused, which is the part, which is the whole. Well, the part is always going to be the smaller number. So my 20 is going to be the part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 20 and I'm going to put it into the formula in place of the word part. And the bigger number is always going to be the whole. So I'm going to take the 250 and I'm going to substitute 250 in place of the whole. So I'm going to have 20 over 250. And this is equal to percent over 100. So at this point, you could do 20 divided by 250 in your calculator. That would give me 0.08 equals percent over 100. So if you do 100 times 0.08, the answer is 8. So in this case, 8 equals percent. The correct answer is B, 8%.
Tommy, do you want to write a math problem?
Yeah, that doesn't look like a math problem, Tommy, but good try. Please write the following number in scientific notation. 280000000000. Please write your answer in the box below. Now, obviously, you can't really write your answer in the box through the screen, so maybe just put it down on a sheet of paper or whatever works for you. But now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try this out. And as always, if you get stuck, don't worry because we're just going to go over the answer. Okay, so for scientific notation questions like this, the name of the game here is that we want to take the decimal point, which is always going to be at the end of the number, and we want to move it in between the first and second digit. So we want to take this decimal and we want to move it over until we get it between the 2 and the 8. And when we do that, we want to count up how many steps it took. So let me show you what I mean. So we start with the decimal point at the end of the number, and we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it would take 10 steps to move it between the 2 and the 8. So I come down here and I'm going to write 2.8 times 10 to the 10. So that's all I have to do for questions like this. Kelly loves watching the show The Office. The table below shows the average number of hours each day she spent watching The Office over a 7-day period. And yes, these numbers are actually pretty small on the screen here because it was a lot to fit on the screen. So let me read them just in case it's hard to see on the device you're watching this from. So this is 2, 3, 2, 5, 4, 2, and 10. And down here it says, what is the average number of hours Kelly spent watching The Office on these 7 days? Please place a dot on the number line below for your answer. Now, obviously you can't really write a dot through the computer screen or your phone screen or tablet screen, whatever you have to be watching this video on, but just imagine if you could, where would you put that dot on the number line down below? So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So whenever you see the word average and the word mean, know that those are two ways of saying the same thing. So if this question said, what is the mean number of hours? It would be the exact same strategy. So what we're going to do to find the average or the mean is we're going to start by taking each of these numbers here, and we're going to add them all up. And then we're going to divide by 7. And you might be wondering, why would we divide by 7? Well, we're going to divide by 7 because there are 7 numbers here that we're working with. If there were 9 days, it would be 9. If there were 10 days, it would be 10, and so on and so forth. So again, here's the first step. I just wrote this out here. 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 5 plus 4 plus 2 plus 10 divided by 7. And if we want to simplify this, all the numbers up here add up to 28. So we would have 28 over 7, and this equals 4. So the dot would go on the 4 about right here. So 4 is the correct answer here. Hopefully this makes sense. Andrew is overwhelmed by the number of streaming services he has to manage. He cancels his streaming services and decides to borrow DVDs from his friend. His friend bought 6 DVDs recently at a flea market. The 6 DVDs his friend bought are Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Avatar, Spider-Man, Cars, Shrek 2, and Despicable Me. Andrew will borrow 2 different movies from his friend. How many combinations of 2 movies could he borrow? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So for combinations questions, there's really 2 different ways to think about them. And the first way is to just kind of work them out by hand. So you could say, okay, the 2 combinations could be the Lord of the Rings and Avatar, say. Or it could be the Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man. Or he could do Lord of the Rings and Cars. Okay, and you could just keep going and work them out this way by hand. It might take you a little while to do it, but that is a valid way to do this question. If you want to kind of work them out like this by hand, the one thing I will say to keep in mind is that if you do the Lord of the Rings and Avatar, you wouldn't also list Avatar and Lord of the Rings. Okay. Same with you already pair L and S together, you wouldn't also want to do S and L. So if you were going to continue doing it this way and write them out by hand, you would have something like this. Now note that for, just so we don't get them confused, for Spider-Man I put S, and for Shrek I put S with a little H next to it, just so we don't get these confused. But basically, if you continued writing them out by hand, you would have something like this, and we'll see that if we count them up, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different combinations of the two movies. So we would see that B is the correct answer. So if you want to do them by hand, this is how you would do it. The other way to do it, which is what I would recommend for most people, is to use the combinations formula. And if you look at this combination, it might seem a little bit, if you look at the formula, it might seem a little confusing what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to show you how to use this. I guess one downside to using this formula is that you'll have to memorize this. This will not be given to you on the test. So anyway, this is the formula there that I would recommend most people use. And again, it's up to you to decide if you want to do it by hand or use the formula. N is the total number of objects in the set. So in this case, the total number of objects here is 6. And R equals the total number of choosing objects. In other words, he's choosing 2 movies. So R is going to be 2 and N is going to be 6. But we have to think about what these exclamation marks mean. All right, so the exclamation marks tell us that we're not just going to plug 6 in for N. What we're going to do is start with 6, and we're going to multiply it by every number below it until we get to 1. So again, N equals 6, but when we go to the formula here, it's not just N, it's N factorial, okay, which is a fancy word for N and this exclamation mark. So what that means is you don't just plug in 6 into the formula, you also have to do 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And you really don't need to write the times 1 here because anything times 1 is just the same number. But I'm just going to write the 1 here for now. So now let's look down here at the bottom of the formula. So the bottom has R, exclamation, parenthesis, N minus R, parenthesis, exclamation. So we're going to do the same type of thing here. So we see R, and we know that our R is 2. But since it has this exclamation mark beside it, we do 2 times 1. So in the parentheses, we're going to have N minus R. Okay, but so N minus R, if N is 6, and R is 2, 6 minus 2 is 4. But we also have to take into consideration the fact that there's this exclamation here. So we're not just going to do 2 times 1 times 4. We're going to do 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay, so now one way to do this would just be to plug all these numbers into your calculator and you could get the answer that way. But what I like to do is look for things that we can cancel out. So we've got a 4 on the top and a 4 down here. Those will cancel. We've got a 3 here and a 3 here. Those will cancel. We can cancel the 2 and the 2. We can cancel the 1 and the 1. So what we'll have now is 6 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. Divided by 2, because 2 times 1 is 2. So 30 divided by 2 equals 15. Now, I know I went over this kind of fast, and usually when I teach the combinations formula, there's people that have questions down below in the comments. So what I would recommend, obviously, first and foremost, if you have questions on this, feel free to ask them down below in the comments. But I will put a link to a video where I do a whole lesson on how to get combinations questions right. I think that one of the best ways to learn this is to just see a couple examples, because the first time you see this, it might seem a bit confusing. But if you had any trouble following this at all, what I would recommend is to check out that video on combinations. Right in the description below this video, I'll put a link to it, and I think that'll help you out. But 15 is the correct answer here. Where were you born? I was born in Pennsylvania. Polka dots or stripes? Stripes. Summer or winter? Summer. What time will you go to bed tonight? Probably around midnight. What store do you shop at the most? Probably Walmart. What's your favorite carnival food? Cotton candy. Oh, funnel cake, funnel cake. If you were given an all expenses paid trip to Cleveland, would you take it? Absolutely, I'd take it in 1 second. Stale Sour Patch Kids or fresh circus peanuts? Circus peanuts, although I just had Sour Patch Kids a few nights ago and they were pretty good. They weren't stale though, that's probably why. Simplify the polynomial. 8x cubed plus 20x plus 12y squared minus 17x plus 2z minus 5x cubed plus 2y squared. So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and if you get stuck, don't worry about it because we're just going to go over the answer. Okay, let's talk about this question. So the key to getting this question right is combining like terms. And if you're not sure what I mean by like terms, don't worry because we're going to go over it now. So basically, let me start by using the x cubes as an example. So this 8x cubed right here, what I want to do is let me find every other term that has an x cubed in it. 20, this is just 20x, this is y squared, this is x, this is z. Well, here we go, 5x cubed, here's another x cubed. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say we've got an 8 here, and we've got minus 5 here. So I want to do 8 minus 5, and I'm just going to bring that x cubed along for the ride. Okay, so 8 minus 5 is 3, so I have 3x cubed. Okay, so now let's deal with the x's next. So let me find every term that has an x in it. So here I've got 20x, and here I've got minus 17x. And we always have to remember to keep this minus sign in mind when we're doing these. So let's just do 20 minus 17, which is 3. And we're going to bring that x along for the ride. So 3x cubed plus 3x. So next, let me do the y squared. So we see that we've got 12y squared and we've got 2y squared. So I want to look at the numbers out front of both of these. So I've got 12y squared and 2y squared. So I can do 12 plus 2, which is 14. And I just want to bring that y squared along for the ride. So I'd end up with 14y squared. Okay, and so now I can deal with the z's. And actually the z's are easy because we only see one term that has a z in it, and that's this 2z. So I just put this 2z right here. And the correct answer here is A. So hopefully this makes sense. Destiny loves classic rock. The chart below shows the number of times she listened to her 6 favorite songs last month. And in case the numbers are small on the screen that you're using, if you're on a cell phone or something that has a small screen, let me read these. This number is 25, 35, 50, 55, 55, and 45. Now the question is, what is the mode of the number of times Destiny listened to each song last month? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, take all the time you need with this question, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So when it comes to finding the mode, we need to find the most occurring number in the set of numbers here. So all of the numbers here show up once, except 55, and 55 shows up twice here. So the most occurring number is 55, so C, 55 is the correct answer here. What are you doing in the box, Tommy? Recently, Ralph found a journal he used to write in back in 2006. In one journal entry, Ralph wrote down his 6 favorite albums and the number of times he listened to each album during the year 2006. The table below shows the number of times Ralph listened to each of his 6 favorite albums during the year 2006. What is the median number of times Ralph listened to each album in 2006? And in this case, we don't have multiple choice answers, so this will just be for you to come up with your own answer. So if you'd like to now, you can pause the video, take all the time you need, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so for a question like this, basically the first step for any median question is to take the numbers and put them in order from smallest to largest. So let me show you how that would look right now. So we would have 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30. So again, with any median question, you want to always start by putting the numbers in order from smallest to largest. Okay, so now, since we've got 6 albums here, right, we've got 6 numbers that we're working with here. 6 is an even number, So we want to find the two numbers in the middle, and we're going to add them up and divide by 2. So again, after you've ordered the numbers from smallest to largest, if you've got an even number of numbers that you're working with, you want to take the two middle numbers and add them up and divide by 2. So if we do 26 plus 28 divided by 2, we get 27. So the correct answer here is 27. Which expression is equivalent to 16x squared plus 8x divided by 4x? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So what I'm going to do to get this question right here is I'm going to do 16x squared divided by 4x, and then I'm going to do 8x divided by 4x, and I'm going to add them together. And if you're not sure what I mean, let me show you here. So 16x squared divided by 4x. How do I do that? Well, 16 divided by 4 is just 4, and x squared divided by x is just x, so I have 4x. Now, let's do 8x divided by 4x. Well, 8 divided by 4 is 2, and x divided by x is going to cancel out. So I'm going to add them together. So again, 4x plus 2. So again, I have 16x squared divided by 4x. That gives me 4x, and I'm going to add that to the result of 8x divided by 4x, which is just 2. So the correct answer here is B, 4x plus 2. This next question is the hardest question in the video in my opinion, so it's this video's Champions Challenge question. If you disagree and think another question was harder, please let me know down below in the comments. In the graph shown below, what is the y-coordinate of point I if the slope of line IT is 2 over 5? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? Now I put the answer choices up here just to hopefully make this graph a little bigger, to make it easier to see, and I put the formula for slope up here. And I just did this to save us time since we're practicing, but on the real test, you'll want to go to your formula sheet that they'll give you on the test and look up this formula if you have to use it for a slope question. So let me give you a chance now to pause the video and try this out, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video, and whether you got it right or wrong, we'll talk about it. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to rely heavily on the slope formula. Since we know that the slope of line IT is 2 over 5, I'm going to rewrite this, but instead of putting an m here, this little m symbol, I'm going to replace it with 2 over 5. So whenever you see a slope formula like this, note that this m symbol always means slope. And since we know that the slope of the line is 2 over 5, I'm just going to rewrite this, and I'm going to write, instead of writing this m, I'm going to write 2 over 5. So the next thing I want to do is come down here to my point I and my point T, and I'm going to label my 0 and x. So what I'm going to do, since the first number in a coordinate pair is always an x, I'm going to call this 0, x1. All right, now this x here, I'm going to call this y1 because the second number in a coordinate pair is always going to be a y. So now I come to point T here, and I'm going to do the same thing except I'm going to use 2's this time. So this 5 here, I'm going to make 5 x2. And this 10 here, all right, the second number is always going to be a y, so I'm going to label that as y2. So now I'm going to come back up here, and instead of, when I rewrite this, instead of writing out y2 minus y1, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at my numbers, and I'm going to put in as many numbers as I can. So for y2 here, we know that y2 is 10 because that's how I labeled it. So I'm going to put 10 here. So I have 10 minus y1. And I come over here and check what my y1 is, and my y1 is x, so I'm just going to put an x here. So my x2 is 5, so I'm going to put a 5 here. And I want to do x2 minus x1, so 5 minus x1, which is 0. So I could write 5 minus 0 here, but I'm just going to put 5 because 5 minus 0 is just 5. So now I'm at the point here where what I want to do is do some math to try to get this x by itself. So in other words, I want to solve this for x, and that's going to give me the answer. So since I've got 10 minus x divided by 5, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to multiply by 5 over here. So if I multiply this by 5, what's going to happen is the 5's are going to cancel out. And up top, I'm just going to have 10 minus x. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. So I'm going to multiply by 5 over here. Now, what's nice about this question here is that the 5's are going to cancel out on this side. And now when I rewrite this, I'll have 2 equals 10 minus x. And again, what we're trying to do here is get the x by itself. In order to get this 10 off of the right-hand side, what I'm going to do is subtract 10. Because I have positive 10, if I do minus 10, they'll cancel out. But whatever I do to one side, I also have to do it to the other. So I'm going to come over here and subtract 10 from this side. So 2 minus 10 is negative 8. And when I rewrite this, I bring my negative x down, so I have negative 8 equals negative x. Now here's a little trick. Since both sides have negative signs, we can actually cancel the negative off of both sides. And then what I'm left with is x equals 8, or 8 equals x, however you want to say it. So when all is said and done, the correct answer is C, 8 equals x.